It's National Cream Cheese Brownie Day, Tom.
Did you send some my way?
No, I didn't. I never know where you are. You're all over the place, so I never really know. I don't even know what a cream cheese brownie day is. I mean, I think I can kind of figure it out. It's a brownie and there's cream cheese in it, but I don't know. Have you ever had that?
I like brownies. I like cream cheese. I've never had them together.
We have to try it. It's also National Umbrella Day. Do you have an umbrella?
Well, where I'm at, we're not going to need an umbrella. We may need a snowplow, but
Oh
not
boy.
an umbrella.
Okay, so you must be in the 7th District somewhere or around our area.
Actually,
Maybe.
up in northern Minnesota today.
All right, we're going to have to talk about that. Why are you in Minnesota? Oh, tell me now. Why are you in Minnesota?
We're doing a field tour. Congressman Pete Stauber from the Duluth area is doing a tour of mining and forestry facilities, and we're talking about public policy around those issues. Should be great. We've got congressmen from all over the country. It's really funny. We have Representative Jerry Carl here. He comes from the Gulf Coast. I think he's from Mobile, Alabama, and Jerry asked, "What should I pack?" Coming up to northern Minnesota, we told him pack everything.
That's a good idea. I remember Minnesota. So when Tommy Thompson was still the governor of Wisconsin, my dad told me the story because Dad, of course, was a sheriff for 28 years, and he got to know him back when he was the governor. And he said that when talking about Minnesota, land of 10,000 lakes, Governor Tommy Thompson always said, "Yeah, but ours has fish in them."
That's exactly right.
All righty. Good morning, everybody. Wisconsin's 7th Congressional District Representative Tom Tiffany is joining us today, February 10th, 2022. For DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben Dryden, and you're watching Breakfast with Tiffany, a monthly live video podcast with our representative where we discuss all things going on in D.C. and the 7th Congressional District. If you have a question or topic you would like Congressman Tiffany to answer or to discuss, let us know in the comments. All right, Tom, good morning. How are you, sir?
Good morning. Hey, we got a couple people. Karen and Sharon are already. Karen and Sharon, is that a rock band?
It should be,
Um,
or a law firm. Yeah.
yeah, they're already on board. Great to have everybody aboard here for. And I got to tell you, Ben, we got to recognize the recognition you received at DrydenWire, where you are the most watched online. What would you call it? Online
Yeah.
news
Yep.
news
A news outlet, digital news outlet.
digital news outlet in the state of Wisconsin, and the number of followers that follow the Dryden Wire rank. I mean, you're like in the top 10 in Wisconsin, and that includes traditional media.
I know.
Congratulations to you and the good work that you've done
Thank you.
in Little Spooner, Wisconsin, and you got that global reach. I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen that are watching this, he is going to go global at some point. Buy stock in Dryden Wire.
Oh, that is incredibly kind of you to say. Thank you so very much. That's awesome, actually. See, Congressman giving me a kudos. Man, I never thought that. I'm going to call every one of my guidance counselors and teachers in school and tell them, suck it. I got Congressman Tom Tiffany giving me a kudos. So you're in northern Minnesota right now. What are you doing in northern Minnesota?
Yeah, up in Grand Rapids, Minnesota, we're going to kick off this morning here as soon as I'm done with you. By the way, we can only go till 9 o'clock this morning because I got to catch the bus. We're going to go up and do a tour of the mines up in the on the Iron Range and talk about some of the public policy issues that surround that, as well as tomorrow we're going to do a forestry tour up here and really talking about public policy and how we foster those industries that are so important for building America, but do it in an environmentally responsible manner. It's really interesting. Remember last month I think it was last month, you asked me, you said, well, you're talking about the environment here, Tom. We were talking about Dead Pike Lake over in Vilas County and trying to save that lake from the iron flock that's going into it. And you said, Republicans aren't generally known in regards to that.
Yep.
And I just said, well, we do care about the environment, but we also care about the economy, and you can do both. You can have both a clean environment and a strong economy, and that's a lot of the message that'll come out, I'm sure, from the people that we talk to today. And it's interesting because one of my colleagues brought out some slides just this week in regards to how, with the shutdown of the Keystone Pipeline and
Mm.
many of there's no additional drilling allowed on federal lands, additional permits being issued by the Biden administration. And it's had this impact of spiking people's energy prices. We all see it, whether we heat our homes, drive our cars, whatever, you're seeing rising costs. And one of the things that was really interesting that came out of these slides, under the previous administration, we had actually reduced our emissions over those 4 years. They're going up now as a result, and it's because we're more dependent on foreign countries. We are actually
Oh,
importing more Russian oil now than we were under the previous administration, and that's because you got to get it from somewhere. And it's no different than what's happening in Europe
I
right now. They are having such energy shortages that they're having to go back to opening or running their coal-fired plants more aggressively, or reopening them because they're not able to keep the lights on, and energy prices have. If you think your energy prices have went up in America, you should see what's happening in Western Europe. So it goes to show the economy and the environment can work together. If you shut down the economy, you actually could end up harming the environment more, because we're having to take more dirty Russian oil now in America as a result of shutting down these pipelines that have been proposed.
That's interesting because we also have to look at it from a global standpoint. So if we're talking about America and where are we drilling, and please help me understand this because I'm sure I'm way off. But if other countries are still doing it and we're relying on them, that's still hurting, quote unquote, hurting the planet. It's bad for the environment, or any of the impacts, I should say, that it has when doing all of these things, whether that's right here in America or that's in Russia or wherever. It's still globally affecting the environment, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm understanding that correctly, that there are ways that we can still do that here in America, be responsible, smart about it, but then also that means that we have less reliance on foreign countries for this stuff. Is that right?
Yeah, for sure. And we are the best in the world, or certainly in the top five, in terms of limiting emissions into the environment, in terms of reductions in CO2 in the last 20 years. We are way ahead of the rest of the world. So if you don't want more CO2 going into the environment, you should have it produced here in America, because we're far better than any other country. And it's the same with minerals. I mean, you can get them from the Congo, where they use child labor. You can get them from China, where they don't have the stringent environmental regulations we have. In
Mm.
fact, I mean, it's really interesting. The last climate soiree they had in Glasgow a few months ago, where they were, we've got to do all these things that are going to save the earth, and yet they come away with no agreement. In particular, China and India never sign on to the agreements. They'll say, yeah, we'll sign on in 20 years. We'll give you a commitment 10 or 20 years from now.
Mm.
But those same people are saying, America, you got to make the commitment right now. We'll let China take a pass and they can get on board in 20 years. That's not right. That doesn't clean the environment. And the simple message is, America is a world leader. We've gotten much better in the last 20 years, and we are continuing to get better. It's a
Sure.
great thing.
Okay. We have a question here from Dan. I'll put on the screen there if you can see that. Do you agree with Senator Mitch McConnell about January 6th? There was a violent insurrection for the purpose of trying to prevent the peaceful transfer of power after a legitimately certified election from one administration to the next. That's what it was. So there you go.
Yeah, I'd be happy to answer it. Hey, Dan, how are you today? I do not agree with Senator McConnell's term of calling it an insurrection. I was there. I was on the floor of the House, and it was a riot. There's no doubt about it. And anybody that was rioting should be charged, and they should be prosecuted, and they should serve the appropriate amount of time, and it should be done expeditiously. One of the great concerns that's going on right now, a number of those people that came in and caused trouble,
Mm.
or have been charged, and that are still sitting in prison, they have not received an expeditious trial. And that's wrong. They should have their day in court. And you know what? If they're guilty, they should do the time.
Mm.
If you did the crime, you should do the time.
Agreed.
And but I don't agree with Senator McConnell when he uses the term insurrection. But it's not. I just don't agree with the term.
Sure.
It was a riot, just like we saw riots across America over the previous summer. And anybody that's rioting, they should serve the time as a result of causing that unrest.
You had, pardon me, you had brought up Russia earlier regarding obviously a different topic here, but you are a congressperson in Washington, D.C., in the House. Are you a part of these discussions, whether it's either committee or help us understand if you are, and if so, in what way, regarding a very topical thing right now, which is Russia, Ukraine, and America's involvement? Are you a part of that, and where do you stand on that?
Yeah, so I've been in Congress, as you know, a little less than 2 years. May
Mm-hmm.
of 2020, I came in the special election.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the biggest, perhaps the biggest change that I saw in regards to policy is foreign policy, because you have to be engaged. We represent people in Washington, D.C. with the federal government. And that is one of the chief roles of the Congress, is to set foreign policy for our country along with the president. And so, yes, I am engaged with that. Now, perhaps not as engaged as some of my other colleagues that sit on like foreign policy, that sit on some of um, uh, the committees
Mm-hmm.
that deal specifically with these issues.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't sit on those committees, but nonetheless involved. And last week, the Biden administration, put on a confidential briefing to all of us who are in Congress, and obviously it's confidential. I can't talk about it, but they shared some of their strategies and what they see has happened and what they expect to happen, and some of the actions that they may take. And so, yeah, certainly very familiar with what is going on there. I would just say a couple things in regards to the Biden administration's reaction.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with what President Biden said earlier this week when he said, if the Ukraine is invaded, then that puts a stop to the Nord Stream pipeline. That Nord Stream pipeline that brings Russian natural gas to Western Europe. That has to stop. And I agree with him doing that. I disagree with him in that he should have never agreed to it when he first came into office. It was a little less than a year ago. He said he gave, if you remember, January 20th, he shuts down the Keystone XL pipeline,
Yep.
takes away the permit for that to be built in America to have us be energy self-sufficient, which helps us be energy self-sufficient, and he okays the pipeline for Russia. It makes no sense. And what that was perceived as, I believe, by Putin in Russia is weakness. And then when you fast forward last year to Afghanistan in August and the disastrous pullout where we looked terrible. And by the way, the military released some documents this week saying, showing that the Biden administration did not follow their guidance, and President Biden doesn't have to, but he did not follow their guidance. They had a recommendation. This is what you need to do to make sure that we don't have a disastrous pullout. Well, we ended up with a disastrous pullout. And what does that show? It shows weakness. And that is what's happening. You see Kim Jong-un in North Korea, you see President Xi in China, and Putin now in Russia. They are taking advantage of that weakness. When America's weak, and we've seen it numerous times throughout our 200 plus years of history, America is not in a good place. When we have strength as America, that's when we see peace around the world. And at this point, President Putin and others, they are taking advantage of that weakness here in America.
So would you, if you had your, as it sits now, and obviously there's some things you had just said you really kind of can't talk about, so maybe it'd be tough to answer this, but where are you, where do you think America's role should be in the Russia and Ukraine situation that's going on right now?
Well, I don't think we should be putting troops in over there or anything like that. But I mean, a big part of the problem is we forfeited our the strength that we had been projecting and that we had been holding Russia at bay, because they want to reestablish the former
Yeah.
Soviet Union. Russia wants to expand its boundaries. And the previous administration was very good about standing up to them. For example, they would not sign the agreement in regards to the Nord Stream pipeline. They said, no, we're not going to make our Western European allies more dependent. It's also why we drilled for more oil, because we had the opportunity to export some of that natural gas into Western Europe so that they were dependent on a country like us rather than on Russia. Now the opposite has happened. As I mentioned earlier, we're actually importing more dirty Russian oil into America
Yeah,
than we were 2 years ago.
sure.
And so it goes back to the simple message is peace through strength. When we are strong, other countries are wary of us.
That's why my wife tells me I need to go to the gym more. Yeah, our family's successful when I'm strong, or somehow, I don't know, who knows. I think she just is a nice way of saying, honey, you're getting really fat. So here is a question from Adam. Great question. There's bipartisan proposal being talked about right now that would ban members of Congress from trading stocks. That's something you might support. And actually, I believe it's also a member of senior staff. Is that something you would support?
So that issue is being talked about a lot at this point. I have not seen a specific bill on this, and I'm anxious to see it for the details. Here's the one concern, Adam, that I have about it. So there are, by stopping members from trading stock, for example, I own a few stocks. I own very little stocks. I maybe have, I don't know, $10,000 worth, something like that. I mean, it isn't like I got millions of dollars or anything like that. But when you take that away from members, many who came from middle-class backgrounds, like myself, and you say you can't trade stock anymore, does that end up where some people say, well, I'm just not going to run. I do want to be able to trade some stocks. And it's part of what I've always done, whether I've been a small business person, a government employee, a teacher, whatever. I've always been able to own and trade stocks. And do you end up that we only have the rich? Do we only have the elite in the Congress of the United States? Because that would be the worst thing that can happen. So that's kind of the give and take that's going on in my mind at this point. Because if it discourages middle-class people from running for Congress, then I don't think it's a good proposal. I certainly understand that some people have abused their privilege. And what should be done, one of the things that should happen for sure, there should be an immediate public notification if you trade a stock. I think that would be, because then you get transparency.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most important thing that we can do. You know, regardless of whether it's campaign finance, this thing with trading stocks, whatever. What's the most important thing that we can do as legislators, as congressional representatives? Give the voters transparency, and then they can make up their mind and they can say, you know, I think he kind of abused his privilege as a congressman trading a stock that they were choosing to regulate last week, and they had insider information. I think it gives the voters the ability, and the press and the media, to be able to report on these stories and give the voters full information. Then they can decide, the voters, whether they want to keep that person in office.
I like that. Do you think that would be, because it does make sense regarding the what Adam's that question that he had brought up, obviously, regarding the Congress from trading stock. I get it, because there is a perception, or there is maybe a belief from some that what's going on. I get it. I totally do. That makes sense. But maybe just getting rid of that altogether isn't necessarily a good idea. But I like that. Do you think that would ever be in a bill? Is that something? I mean, that's a very logical, rational, reasonable thought process. Transparency. If that was in there, would you be like, okay, I mean, as long as we have that, I'm fine with it. But if that's not in there, I don't know if just getting rid of this is necessarily the best idea.
Yeah, it's a great discussion that we're going to have. Okay. I think it's in the early stages here.
Oh, sure. Okay.
And it's a really good question that Adam's posing. And people have a right to be concerned, because we've seen insider trading that has gone on by congressional members. And that's wrong when that happens. And so I think, I pretty much laid out what I'm looking for in a bill. And ultimately, I want there to be transparency. I think that's the greatest thing that we can do.
I think that's what everybody wants.
And so I may vote for a bill like this. I really need to see more details at this point.
Well, you have a hard stop at 9 o'clock, so we have about 9.5 minutes left. What do you want to talk about? I know that you did some, I think I saw you around doing listening sessions right?
Yeah, we did a bunch of listening sessions right at the end of January, and they were
Yeah.
terrific. We did 2 days. Let's see, we did 6 stops. We're primarily over on the east side of the district.
Oh,
Phillips, Hurley, Three Lakes, Antigo, Merrill, and went and visited those people. Lots of good questions, really good turnout. We had some that were 50, 60 people that showed up. I mean, I remember doing listening sessions when I was in the state Senate where um, this didn't happen often, but there were a few times. I mean, we only had 2 or 4 people, and that's always disappointing when there's a bunch of people that showed up. But there was really good turnout. In fact, uh, remember that week it hit. I remember 7:42 a.m. I'm driving to Leona, and my car thermometer hits -30.
mm.
And we had 25 or 30 people show up at 8 o'clock in Leona. It was terrific. And so we covered a whole variety of, I mean, people brought up all kinds of questions, immigration, IRS. People are having a problem with the IRS at this point, getting their refunds or excuse me, their returns being processed. And it is a big problem. And I didn't realize the extent of the problem until a few weeks ago, and people kept bringing it up. And it is really a serious problem. The IRS is now saying we're so backlogged, and I don't know why that is. I'm not sure the IRS is always focusing on the job at hand. And but if people see some delays, they can contact my office. The one thing that we heard from the IRS is don't send in a second copy of your return if you haven't heard from us, because it'll just
Jam everything up.
jam everything up. And
Oh,
so
great.
Ukraine was just hitting the news at that point, election integrity, and we had a great stop in Medford. That was one of the stops we made. Also, was Medford. We went into a school class. I love to go into schools and talk to kids. I mean, they're just great. They have good questions. All the rest. There's something called Project Lead the Way, and they were talking. This is high school, upper high school kids, and they were talking about intellectual property. I mean, these kids are doing inventions and stuff like that. What a fascinating conversation. And they had some good questions that I wasn't able to answer all of them. And we're getting that information to them at this
Sure.
point. But I really give great credit to the teachers and the kids there at the Medford school that are in that Project Lead the Way. It's pretty cool. I know a lot of other schools have it also, but it's pretty neat. And you really see we always hear the bad news, right?
Typically,
Part of the reason I love going into school. Of course, you deliver good news. That's the reason for
I
those
try
high
to.
ratings for the DrydenWire.
Just
Um,
stop.
but that's one of the best parts about going into these schools is you really see that in many ways America has a great future if we allow all these kids to flower as they are at these schools. And I come away hopeful after visiting our schools like that.
Do you like doing the listening sessions, or is it a necessary evil, as it were?
Oh, I like doing them. I've always done a lot of them
You have.
throughout being a legislator and now in Congress. I mean, we get good things. Stuff will be repetitious. The issues of the
Sure.
day, they'll be repetitious, but people bring up new things that I haven't heard of also. And that is really the ultimate purpose of
Mm.
this stuff that we don't know that's happening in the federal government that we should, and perhaps we can help people. That's always fun to do that stuff.
There's I think, a question, and I don't know if it's going to stay on the screen long enough. If it was a little, ideally just a, little shorter question. Yeah, I'm not going to read that. If you can read it there.
Is this from Danny Bacchus?
Yeah.
I hope I
there,
said Danny's last name right.
yeah.
It's in regards to broadband. It's getting a little
Is there,
fuzzy on the screen.
oops, sorry. Dan, if you have a more specific question, if you could put that up here in the next few minutes, I'm sure Congressman will be more than happy to answer that.
Hey, I think the question there that she has ultimately is, does the federal government have any grants for, I think, running fiber optic
For lower class
to
families.
a home? What you should do, Danny, is you should contact my office, 715-298-9344, or you can find it online. Shoot that question in online, and or give us a call, and my staff will answer that question for
Nice.
you.
Hey, speaking of staff, your press secretary, her name Bridget, so she's the one I communicate with when, now that you're big time, right? I mean, I have to contact your people. When you're the senator here in Wisconsin, we could just call each other and text, hey, what's up, dude? And not anymore. Dude, I got to go through a press secretary. Kidding, of course. I still enjoy our chats, but she has been absolutely phenomenal to work with. I've had several phone conversations with her, a lot of email communication with her, and when I confirmed our show for this morning, she had confirmed it and then also said, I think it's this week is her last week there. So I just wanted to give her a personal shout out because she's been absolutely fantastic to work with. I don't know where you found her, but she was wonderful. Hopefully she's going into bigger and better things.
Yeah, so Bridget was great. So there's a reason you go through my press secretary, because if I schedule things now, it may not get done.
Oh, I know. I know.
It is.
No, I know. I get it.
I mean, Bridget helps keep me on
She's
track along with other
fantastic.
staff
Yeah,
to
she
make
was.
sure I'm meeting all of my commitments.
Yeah.
That is a good
Yeah,
thing,
I
Ben.
know. That's what I meant. That when you were there, it was like it was a little easier for you to do. Now it's like you have so many other places and things you have to do. We have to go through that scheduler. How does that? How just quickly? How long was she there with you since the beginning? I thought she was.
Yeah, she started from the beginning.
Yeah.
One of our first hires, and Bridget did a great job. She's moving on to bigger and better things,
Oh, good for her.
going to the private sector, and she really likes digital media. You
Hey.
should, I think you kind of like that, right? She really likes digital media, and she's going to work for a company that is their specialty, is digital media.
Awesome.
And
Well, good for
she's
her.
going to do terrific. We actually lost another young man out of our office this week, and his name is Jack. Jack's originally from Duluth. He's going to the private sector. So here we are. We're training all these young people that do such a good job that they're under, that employers are pursuing them. It's a great thing.
Awesome.
You have these young people, they're proving themselves, and then they're moving on. I wish Bridget and Jack nothing but the best. For those of you that have called into my DC office before, you probably have talked to Jack. He's done a terrific job. And but we went out and we will hire replacements. In fact, we have both of them in place. Maybe we can announce them next month.
Awesome.
And we're really looking forward to working with the new talent that we're going to bring in also.
Awesome. Looks like we're up against. We have 2 minutes left here. So, any last or final words? Anything that you wanted to bring up that we didn't get a chance to talk about?
No, I don't think so. Here's a person that Ruth said. Tiffany is worthless. I emailed him about my sewer and water being froze up, all the sewer pipe being broken. He referred me to Congress and some law. We can't get fiber optic due to the fact I live in a mobile home court. So in regards to the fiber optic side, Ruth, I would contact your state representatives also. I'm not sure what town you're in, Ruth, but find out who your state assembly rep is and your state senate rep. Contact them also. And you're welcome to contact us in regards to the fiber optic stuff, but especially when in regards to the sewer and water stuff, you should be contacting your locally elected representatives. They ultimately have control of that. I do not. Now, if there's regulatory stuff at the federal level that affects it, we're happy to talk to you about it. But otherwise, I'm not going to be able to do much about it when you have your sewer and water frozen up. Really talk to your mayor, your city council, whoever they are, because they're going to be able to help you. That is a local issue. Not trying to dodge responsibility here, but trying to send you to the best people possible to answer your questions.
Awesome.
And I appreciate you commenting, Ruth.
Yeah, I'm not sure she's a huge fan, but that's okay. We win them over one at a time, right?
That's fine. Yeah, we all have differences of opinion.
What? See, I don't have that problem. Everybody loves DrydenWire. Yep, never have that problem. Hey, thanks so much, man. Where are you off to? You have something you're going to today, but when are you back? DC, 7th Congressional District. Are you doing anything in our area soon?
Yeah, I'll be back this weekend. Lots of stuff going on this weekend. Both Price County and Sawyer County have their Lincoln Day dinners. For those not familiar with that, that is the Republican Party has these Lincoln Day dinners where they invite people in like myself, it's oftentimes really good camaraderie. We have a nice lunch or dinner, and then we speak on the issues and stuff like that. And if people want to join the party, this is one of the benefits of being able to do that. I believe Democrats do the same thing. They used to call them Jefferson Jackson dinners. I don't know that they call them that anymore since they ran Andrew Jackson out of their party. But it used to be Jefferson Jackson dinners. And so Democrats do the same thing in northern Wisconsin, and but there's a few of them that are going on.
Why do they call it Lincoln dinner? I mean, I think I know the answer, but maybe there's a reason that I didn't know.
Yeah, Abraham Lincoln, the
Well, I
very first
assumed.
Republican, the very first
Sure.
Republican president. I mean,
First Republican.
he is, he was one of the founders with of our party, and we proudly recognize Abraham Lincoln as the original Republican president.
All right, hold on. One quick follow-up here. Hold on. Do you think if Abraham Lincoln was alive today, he would recognize the Republican Party?
Oh yes,
Okay.
yeah. For those that believe, I mean, take people like myself. I always talk about the Constitution and the founding documents. For example, I mean, we've seen a couple bills now where they're reinstituting racial segregation. There's a Department of Agriculture program. You saw over in Minnesota where they wanted to discriminate against white people being able to get the vaccines before minorities do. That type of stuff is really antithetical to the American way. And we Republicans are standing up against that. Abraham Lincoln would be proud because that's exactly why he became the president of the United States. A single issue that all men are created equal. It says it in the Constitution, and he believed in upholding the Constitution of the United States of America.
And so do you.
I do too.
See,
Hey, great to talk. I got to
awesome.
run.
Thanks so much, man. That was great. For DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben Dryden, and you've been watching Breakfast with Tiffany, a monthly live video podcast with our representative where we discuss all things going on in D.C. and the 7th Congressional District. We host these podcasts with Congressman Tiffany every second Thursday of the month, so make sure you join us next month for another exciting episode of Breakfast with Tiffany. Until then, stay safe, stay positive, and as always, have a blessed day.